Hi, everybody. This is Camera Work Podcast, episode 9. Joining me today is my wife, Tamara.
Hello.
Okay. So originally we would have done an episode with Ray, who's the co-host of the show, but we had some issues on the weekend that we weren't able to get to the studio with the gear, so we ended up doing it here instead in the house with Tamara. I wanted to make sure we got an episode done this weekend, especially since I'm going away next weekend. So I figured, let me make sure I get one in the can. So usually we start the podcast by talking about how our week went and what happened during the week. So just tell us a little bit about your week. In particular, if there's anything photographic, you can start with that.
I'm not a photographer, so I don't think I had any photographic memories or experiences this week.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to make sure you're talking into the mic.
It was a good week nonetheless.
Right. Okay. So my week was really good. I ended up shooting 5 episodes of BET, of 106 and Park, which I shoot all the time. And in addition to that, I had 2 studio sessions, which were really good. One was Mindless Behavior. I shot them at my studio. They came in at 9 p.m. and I was really worried that they were just going to be dead because it was so late. But, you know, I guess because they're so young, they came in and they just had like 100% energy and they were really, really good. And we went through 3 looks and we got it done in like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours at the most, and went really, really well. So that'll end up in Word Up. And then the other one was a guy named Young Marcus, who I met at BET. He was appearing on the pre-tape show, which we shoot at 1 p.m. And I actually got him to come down to the studio on the same day. I shot him in the break between the 2 shows at like a 3-hour gap between the pre-tape show and the live show at 6. And I managed to get him to come down and shoot. And, we shot him right there in that little gap and got some really strong stuff on him. So when I get to shoot in the studio, I'm especially happy because it's just my little world. It's a world that I get to create and make it into whatever I want it to be. So I was really happy to shoot in the studio as well as the BET stuff. So it ended up being a, really good week for me.
That's fantastic.
Right. So
I'm happy when you're happy.
That's good. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today. So one of the things I thought was interesting was I brought this topic up on one of the early podcasts. I used to do something called the Ricard rant on the podcast, and that was me just ranting about anything. And I did it for like 2 podcasts, and then I dropped it primarily.
Because it was bad?
No, it was good. I loved it. No, it was good. But it was really because of Janice, who's my sister. I don't know. She just seemed to feel that it wasn't a good look. It was just kind of like too negative and too preachy, and that I'm better off just not doing it. So I dropped the Ricard rant. But when I was doing the Ricard rant, one of the ones I did was about makeup artists who tweet a before and after photograph of the person that they're doing the makeup on. And this is really common on Instagram.
You did a rant on that?
Right.
Or that was just like what was that day that you were ranting just at a get-together? Was that Thanksgiving or something?
Right. No, right. So on Thanksgiving recently.
Was it Thanksgiving?
Right. At Thanksgiving, that topic came up just in the house. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to you and I was talking to my sister Lisa, and we had that same conversation that we're going to have right now about the idea of, is it right or wrong for a makeup artist to show a before picture and an after picture of the person that they're working on? But when I did the rant, it was actually inspired by the fact that I was shooting an artist, and the makeup artist said, "Can I take a before picture of you?" And the artist said, "Fine." And then she did the makeup, she did the after picture, and she posted it on Instagram. And the artist was following the makeup artist.
Who's a really good makeup artist, by the way.
She's great. We're not going to name her, but because we're saying stuff about her here. But when the artist saw the picture, she said, "Hey, could you do me a favor and take it down?" Now, the makeup artist got a little offended by it.
Take down the before picture.
Correct. It was a before-after combination picture.
Okay.
So the makeup artist kind of brings me out to the hall, and she's saying to me like, "Oh, the artist wants me to take it down, whatever." And it was really the first time I ever thought about it. And I just instantly said, I think she's right. I don't get the point of those pictures. Doesn't make sense to me. Our job is to make them look good. We are the image makers. That's why they come to us, because we make them look amazing. Our job is not to publicize them looking bad. Like, they can do that themselves. What do they need me for to post a bad picture of you? The whole point is the final result. So I agreed with the artist. And of course, the picture did end up going down because at that moment, we're going to do what the artist wants to do to make the shoot work anyway. But that just got me to thinking of the whole thing. And then the more I thought about it, I really just thought that even though everyone does it, because we all start thinking that if everyone does it, it must be right. Like all over Instagram, you see this. I personally think it's wrong. But where do you stand on it as a female person who potentially could one day be the subject of a before picture and an after picture?
I think you know this already, but I think if you're standing and posing for someone to take a before picture of you, and you're comfortable with that, and you're okay with people seeing you without makeup, and you're not, I don't want to necessarily use the word insecure, because you don't necessarily have to be insecure, to not want people to see you without makeup, if that's, how you want to present yourself. But if you're okay with taking a before picture, because it's not like the makeup artist is sneaking and taking the picture.
Right.
You have to stand there and you have to look straight into the iPhone or whatever camera they're using, and you have to take this picture with a naked face.
But see, to me, make sure you go right into the mic.
So I have no problems with that. And I feel like if you and the person have that agreement beforehand, like, yes, I'm going to throw this up on my IG, I'm going to put this on my Twitter, I might put it on my site, whatever, then that's fine.
Right. But see, my problem is that the majority of people who come to you don't know what they're doing. Well, even if they're artists.
But people know that you're taking a picture of them. They know it,
but they may not realize the implications of it and what the reaction is going to be. It might be their first photo shoot. It might be the first time that they've ever had.
Well, we just want the normal girl, though. I'm not talking about.
I'm talking about for both. I'm talking about a period, because I said makeup artists who do the before and after pictures. So to me, whether it's an artist or whether it's a regular person, because even the artists don't know a lot of times. They'll let you take pictures that they really should not let you take, because they're not always educated and the publicist might not be on point at that moment. So to me, asking the person is really not enough, because they might say yes, it's still wrong. It's just, to me, it's just not our job. Again, they can do that without us. And I've brought the topic up to a bunch of people. Most people think I'm wrong, and like I said, I mentioned my sister earlier, and like when I mentioned it to Janice, she's just like, well, you have all this like black and white in your head, and this is right and this is wrong, and almost like you shouldn't even think about it. It's like, if they're doing it and everybody's happy, what do you care, and why do you sit and judge it? Fair enough, but I do. But in any case, when I bring it up, most people don't agree with me that it's wrong. But what's interesting was this made the paper recently, because there was a makeup artist, and as far as I can tell, she must be like the #1 makeup artist for porn, because she shot like every porn star, and she had.
The Daily Mail said she took pictures of 90 porn stars on. I guess it was. I don't know if it was one day or
No. This is definitely over
days. Yeah.
This is definitely over a course of time, and she must be getting a ton of work. But I saw it in the Daily News. The Daily News had a gallery of 20 pictures of porn stars before and after, and they credited her. And it was also credited to an agency. I think it was like Splash or something like that, which I thought was interesting, because I didn't really understand how she got it to the newspapers. I'm like, did they just take it off her feed, or did she contact them? I didn't really know how she did it. But the first observation I had about it was it played into something we've talked about in the podcast before with me and Ray, about this idea that people who are photographers who are not technically photographers, like she's doing the job of a photographer, what I feel is one of the jobs of a photographer, which is telling a story. She's taking you to a world. She's taking you to the world of porn, and she's giving you something different, because you think of porn, you think of people having sex and all of this stuff, and she's giving you a completely different vision of porn. She's showing you these girls without makeup, which you could interpret that a million ways. You could look at it and go, oh, they're so sweet. They're like regular girls. They're not superstars, and then they're superstars. Or you could go, wow, they're really ugly without makeup, and it's all Hollywood that makes them look good. Million ways you could interpret it. But to me, the idea that she's telling a story with a camera is fantastic, because as we've talked about in the podcast many times, a lot of photographers aren't doing that. They're just doing assignment jobs, and they're just taking a check and doing
but she's just doing a before and after picture. I don't know if she's telling this. It
is a story, because has anyone ever done it before? Has anyone ever shot 90 before and after?
Not necessarily, but like you're saying but you're saying that this is like now a trend on Instagram that makeup artists are doing. So it might just be something that this person has jumped on. And
you don't have to be a genius.
So I don't know. To me, a story would mean you'd have to go, and it's off the topic. We're not talking about telling stories, but she's doing one particular thing. Like she's taking before and after
that's all you have to do. Like I've mentioned photographers.
To me, that's not necessarily a story. Like
for me, it is, and I've mentioned other photographers like a Lenny Friedman who told that story of the skateboarders in the late 70s who kind of invented a new way to skate in California.
But they're probably telling a story. They're probably giving you more shots and more, of a bigger mental picture of what it was like to be a skateboarder. To me, I have no idea what it's like to be a porn star. I have no idea what it's like to, what the shoot was like for these girls. There's still. My only story is, I looked like either cute or I looked a little beat down or I looked a little whatever before this makeup, and now that's what I look like after.
Right. Well, I don't know. To me, it's a story. That's
not a story.
But in any event, to me, it's a story. Okay. But in any event, so the first thing I thought was like, well, are all the porn stars going to get mad? Mm-hmm. What's going to be the reaction? So I go on Google and I'm searching like, what was her name, by the way? Because you looked it up,
it's
right?
Melissa Murphy.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. So I think the name is Melissa Murphy. His name is a makeup artist. So I'm typing in Google like Melissa Murphy makeup artist controversy. All of this stuff. Like I'm trying to see the big controversy in the porn world, and I can't find anything on it. Mm-hmm. And I was disappointed because I felt like, well, finally, like somebody's going to start agreeing with me that doing the before and after photos are wrong. And I couldn't find anything, whatever. Now, I follow exactly one porn star on Twitter, Alexis Ford.
Only one?
Yeah, only one. Alexis Ford, right? And
she should be honored.
Yeah, she should. She's the only one. And I met her at the Exotica Expo that I shot last year. And, she seemed cool, whatever. Follow her Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I had given up finding anything on Google, but then just looking at my timeline, there was Alexis Ford complaining about it. So, I was like, okay, finally, somebody agrees with me. So I'm going to read you some of her tweets. Okay. And for anyone who's not that familiar with Twitter, it can be, when you read tweets, sometimes like they're kind of out of order, and sometimes people are writing things that are like in response to someone else. So when you read a tweet, it can be a little confusing to understand, but if you just bear with me, it'll make sense even if some of this might be a little bit out of sequence, okay? So this is, and some of the language could be bad here and there, okay? But this is some of the stuff Alexis Ford wrote about this situation. So she said, one second.
What did
she says, exactly my point. She sold us all out. We never gave permission. In one interview, she said she thought it would be okay since she had them on her Instagram. But these tabloids didn't just take the photos. She sold them and gave it to them. And now she's too busy to respond to any messages anyone is leaving her. If the dumb snake cunt didn't feel she did anything wrong, why didn't she respond? So one of the issues that Alexis Ford had with it was the idea that they were sold to like an agency, and she was giving interviews about it. And then it ended up in like, I guess, one newspaper, and then the way things work today, it gets picked up in every newspaper. But she, was really...
But it was on Instagram.
It had been on Instagram before, but to some degree, Instagram is still a little bit of a closed community, meaning like you'd have to be following the makeup artist.
Many things are. And sometimes, okay, like maybe this makeup artist didn't know that this would become viral.
Well, she knew this because according to Alexis Ford,
knew that it was going to become viral.
According to Alexis Ford, she gave the photos to an agency.
Okay, so let's say somebody said to her, "Oh wow, this is, you put this all together. This is kind of interesting." Right. Because like you're saying, she's telling a story, but without knowing. Okay. Right. So somebody put the seed in her head or whatever, or however it went down. She sold the pictures.
Right.
Probably didn't really expect it to be as big as it became.
Right. She might not have been conscious of it. She might not have been. So we don't know if she did or didn't.
There are tons of times people don't necessarily, you can't predict whether or not something will catch on or it won't.
Right. Yeah, she might have thought it was going to be in one newspaper, and she might have thought that the art stars would even see it.
Or whatever. Or you sell one picture of the really popular one someplace, or whatever the case might be. But it's not like, or just even to have your body of work in one place. But it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, it's going to be in the newspaper, whatever on Tuesday. You're not expecting it. So maybe that's why she didn't necessarily respond, because there is nothing you don't know what to say, because.
Well, you could say, I'm sorry if the clients are offended. And notice
you can say you're sorry, but then that opens up the entire situation to, okay, I'll take them down. That might not be something she wants to do or whatever.
Now anyway, because it's in Huffington Post and everywhere else.
So that's when you would get lawyers involved, whatever the case might be. But
she said here, and she said, there's another Alexis Ford thing. She said, we never consented. She's saying we never consented. And she is a fucking sneaky ass snake bitch who sold out her clients to be famous. She never asked us if it would be cool. I don't know what the rest of that is. But in another point, she says here, what's pissing us porn stars off is not the photo with no makeup, because we post those all the time. It's the way she sold us out. So I think with a lot of things, communication really is the key, because it's the idea that, for Alexis Fort, that she wakes up one day and then boom, you're in a newspaper without your makeup and you didn't know that was going to happen. And I think anytime you work with any client, particularly celebrities, you do have to be so conscious of the fact that things you do can cost you that. Not necessarily that it's going to happen,
because she's saying that she'll put pictures up on her Instagram of herself without makeup or whatever. But it's the concept or the idea that somebody is now making money off of that.
She mentions that too. I couldn't find it.
To me, that's what she's saying. She's not necessarily talking about, anything else. It's just like, oh, hey, you sold the pictures.
Right.
Versus it just
she's also saying you sold us out. Like she said later too, like she sold out her clients.
But it's the same thing.
Well, the difference selling out, it's like you betrayed your clients, I think is how they felt, because you are seeing these celebrities in a state that most people don't see them in,
Yes, but we're also living in a world where the media is now using Twitter. They're using Instagram. They're using these sources for pictures as well. So if she's popular enough to get into the Daily News, right? On her own merit, or the case might be, then the Daily News is going to take oh my gosh, she posted a picture on Instagram of herself without makeup. We're going to run that because it's like something that people want to see. Just like Kim Kardashian, they'll do the Star magazine will have 100 faces without makeup or whatever.
Well, I think what interesting.
But are you big enough to necessarily do that all by yourself, or let's link it back to your story? Or is it interesting because you are grouped together with this whole slew of girls, and you are the fantasy of all these men? Nobody really knows who you are as an individual. Right. You're not Kim Kardashian, like where people are truly, truly interested. But it's just the idea that, whoa, maybe women know that you wake up in the morning, you don't look like this, but they're selling a fantasy. Mm-hmm. And men are all kind of caught up with that.
But if you're selling a fantasy, your job as the makeup artist is not to be the person who shatters that fantasy. That's just not your job.
Not necessarily. But the girl is also shattering fantasy. Because
that's her prerogative.
That's her prerogative.
And this is the thing,
I understand.
About it.
But I think it comes down to money, and I think it comes down to trust. It does. Because, I don't know that I trust you enough to take this before picture of me looking like real ratchet or whatever. Mm-hmm. I trust you enough to do that. Because if they were smart, all 93 of them wouldn't have stood there. And, and it might be a group thing where everybody's doing it. So it's like, okay.
No, that's all separate things.
No, but there had to have been at least 8 of them on one day. It's not like there was one of them and this whole shoot is, put together for one person. I'm sure it didn't work that way. Right. But if you're kind of like just in the sequence of people taking the before picture and whatever.
Then you think it's normal. But that goes to what I said before, where to me, you can't always trust the artist to make the judgment because a lot of times they don't know and they're trusting us to make them look good. So, but in any event.
But it goes into betrayal because now you're making money off of something that I thought you were just going to throw up on Instagram.
Right. And then I think
I'm not making any money.
And the last point though that I think is funny is that we were looking at a makeup artist who had the before and after, and then that look dramatically different. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly saying it's like when you do that, it's like you're almost saying like, wow, look how bad she looked before I got to her. And I find that insulting because again, it's like if you're a choreographer, are you supposed to post video of, Michael Jackson not being able to dance until you got to him and now he can dance?
They're trying to get work. You know what I'm saying? Right. And the more dramatic it is, and we live in a society, unfortunately, where people can be mean, people can be malicious. I mean,
well, in the comments, not the person posting.
Yeah, they're not trying in the comments or whatever. Yeah,
people are trying to be mean.
And you look at a person without the hair and without the makeup and without all this whatever. And people can use that against you. In the comments, like you're saying. And that's not right. Now, is it wrong because I'm throwing my face up there with the pimples and with the whatever and with the snaggletooth and with the whatever? Is that wrong? No, I don't feel like that's wrong. That's how the person looks. Right? But it's wrong for you to call me ugly because of it. That's not cool.
Yeah, but again, I just feel that we're in a position where we're supposed to protect these people that are paying us, because if I'm paying you to do my makeup, you're not supposed to be putting me in that position where people can ridicule me, because you've got this trusted position of seeing me without the makeup.
But again,
and I'm paying you to transform me.
But again, you go into that, idea that I can't predict that this person is going to be ridiculed.
Then just to be safe, then you just put up the final product. I think the final product is impressive enough,
Yeah, but if you're trying to get me, the Instagram user, as a customer, as a person that I'm going to call when I'm going out, when I want to look great, and, not just going to work or whatever to get my makeup done, then your work is going to stand out because of the transformation.
Right, but my problem is, if I'm another part of this equation, if I'm the paying customer, don't do it on my back.
Then that's cool. I understand that, but I agree with you on.
Right?
I do. I agree with you. However, I feel like we can all make a choice. Like, let's say I'm going to do your face for free. But it's going to be a before and after.
But then let the person know. But
of course,
that's not what's always happening.
But if it's for free, right? That's not always what's happening. But I feel like when I'm standing there and I'm staring into the camera and my face is naked. Like right now, my face is naked. I'm about to. You're about to throw this up on YouTube. I'm not wearing any makeup.
But at least you know.
Right. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh my God, like I look ratchet. Why did he do that to me?" Like, hi, like I looked in the mirror before and I know what I look like. You know what I'm saying? So I don't feel like, I don't know. I just don't feel, you can get upset if you see comments that people make.
Right.
That's fine. And then I think if I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really embarrassed by this. Can you take this down? If the person's like, no,
Yeah, no one should get offended. Should be like, okay.
Right, exactly.
And it's funny because we watch.
Especially if I paid you. Now, if I didn't pay you and we made this agreement and, that's different.
Right.
But like, I feel like, it should be okay. It's not that.
But we both watch Love and Hip Hop, which is the only reality show I like. And they had that incident where the trainer took the picture of one of the girls working out, and then her boyfriend's like, "Will take it down because she doesn't look right in the middle of certain workout, certain workout positions."
That's not cool.
The other guy's like, "I'm not taking it down."
Yes, you should take it down because I'm offended by it. You know what I'm saying? And I might be offended, a day later when I see all these comments and I'm being ridiculed or whatever the case might be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I feel like that's really when it becomes a problem. Right. It becomes a problem when you're being ridiculed. And then, the situation is, what is the real problem? The real problem isn't this person who stood there or me with no makeup on. The problem is the people who are judging. The problem is the people who are,
But again, but the last statement on this, because we're going to go to another topic though, is just, to me, as the professional, you protect them and you don't let out content that could embarrass them. Again, I shoot 106 in Park. I shoot a television show every week. I edit the photos. I shoot 800 to 1,000 shots.
Listen, I agree
upload
that.
150.
I agree that as a photographer.
Them,
I agree that as a photographer, you should do that. I do.
Right.
But, as far as the makeup thing goes, no, you shouldn't take a picture of me and I look absolutely like insane and I see the picture and I don't agree with you putting up the picture and you throw it up there anyways. Or, you're just like maliciously, putting something up where I look horrible.
Right.
Like,
I don't think any of the makeup artists do
I don't think people are doing that. So I don't necessarily see a problem with it.
Right. But let's move to another topic. Okay. So there's something that I've been encouraging you to do that you've been hesitant to do, right?
What's that?
So,
pray tell.
You and I have very different jobs, right? As I work as an independent photographer who runs my own business, which sometimes goes very well and sometimes does not go very well. And then you work for the Board of Ed, and your job is?
Well, you're putting all my business out in these streets.
I'm sure they can Google you and find you in 2 minutes.
I'm not on Google, okay? You can't.
You don't have a choice. We're all on Google, okay?
Okay. Can we just say I work for the Department of Education?
Okay. So you work for the Department of Education.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And I'm always saying,
you can put my naked face out there, but not all my business in these streets.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you.
But in any event,
Thank you.
I I believe, even though sometimes my job does not go the way I want it to go, and it can be extremely frustrating, having to constantly sell yourself and reinvent yourself and hustle all the time and not have the steady gig, I still encourage really almost everybody to not work the 9 to 5 and to be doing something that's closer to their passion and something that gives them certain freedoms, which we'll talk about in a second.
Right.
But for someone like yourself who does work the classic 9 to 5 job, what is the hesitation for you to either quit the 9 to 5 and then pursue some other type of independent field that might be in line with whatever is important to you? Or what is the hesitation to quit the job for 1 year or 2 years to say, well, I'm just going to go and do something different than working for a company for that period of time?
What is the hesitation? I feel like the job that I have, I am passionate about it. Just as how you're passionate about your photography. What was that?
Don't worry, just keep talking.
I feel like I'm passionate about what I do. I don't think you believe that, because there's a part of you that probably doesn't believe that you can be passionate about a 9 to 5. Right? Because that's not what you do. And that's cool, you know. But I do love what I do, you know, and it's okay for me to wake up in the morning and go and do what I do. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as not doing it for a year, it's not necessarily, I feel like things have to be okay. Things have to be in place. It's just my personality in order for me to take time off. To me, I feel like people should do that anyways, even if you are creative, because you're working. Whether you love it or whether you think that it's not a 9 to 5 or whatever, you're working, right? So you can take a year off and travel too. I think everybody should. And, you know, we occupy such a small space on this planet, and there's so much that I would love to see and I would love to do.
Right.
You know, but unfortunately we live in a society where it's very difficult to, you know, pick up and do something else for an entire year.
But stop.
Like, I'm not a Bedouin. You know what I'm saying? I live in Brooklyn.
Right.
Like,
but stop a second. See, now I would disagree with that, because I think one of the...
So then why don't you pick up and do something else completely different for a year?
Because I don't need to, in a sense that...
I don't need to either.
No, I can explain it to you. The advantages that I say to you that someone like yourself would get from the 9 to 5 job, I'm already getting those advantages. And believe me, I get more than enough days off. But like I say to you, things like the freedom to just take a nap in the daytime, the freedom to train. I get to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I get to go whenever I want to go. And I am hardly ever am I like dog dead tired. And, you know, I worked the 9 to 5. I did for 11 years.
From a person who falls asleep at 8:30.
Well, I fall asleep because I'm sleepy, but I'm just saying.
Like, what?
No, and I'm not even making a joke. I taught high school for 11 years. The type of tired that I got when I came in the door from teaching, I never get that. It doesn't matter how, and again, even when BET is extremely draining because I shoot a lot of pictures, I edit them right away, and I have to upload them.
It's a different type of tired.
It's a completely different type of tired. And one second. And what happens is I get to tons of period of recovery, so I know if I'm exhausted today, chances are I'm not going to be working the next day.
The fact that you have days off and the fact that you get to train when you want, get to take a nap when you want, that's fantastic. Unfortunately, I feel like for me, a year off wouldn't necessarily just be me in Brooklyn, you know, getting up and training and taking naps and whatever. You know, I would love to live somewhere else for a year. You know, I would love to just like be an expat somewhere, you know, go to a whole nother country and immerse myself
now that can be difficult.
Into a whole nother... Now, that's what I would want to do.
Okay, but
if I'm giving myself a year or two away from what it is that I do. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily look at, well, I mean, how do I say this? I mean, because I think it's great that you're passionate about what you do, and I think it's great that you're creative. I think that's a fabulous thing. But I don't necessarily wake up and envy your life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh my God, you know, that's how I want to live. Like, that's not...
Right.
That's not my world.
But I think one of the problems, though, when people are in a 9 to 5 and they're deciding not to do the type of field that I have, this type of a career. One of the problems is they feel that they don't have the answers to all the questions. Like they're saying to themselves, well, if I quit the job, well, then how am I going to have money for the rent or whatever? But I think
it's a real question, though.
It's a very real question. Mm-hmm. But when you study people who've made certain types of decisions that have been successful, many times they didn't have the answer to the questions. And like, I got a studio 8 years ago.
And people who aren't successful, they don't have the answers to the questions either.
However, but the thing that's important is, there was a time in history where making a wrong decision could kill you. Like, there was a time in history where like Vikings could just come and rape and pillage the town or whatever. Okay. And if you didn't catch a deer on your hunt, with your bow and arrow, you starved. Today, that's just really not an issue for someone like yourself because, your mother's alive, you have a great relationship with her, and, I have my family, whatever. You're not really in danger of the serious consequences of, like, starving in a period of a year when you could go back to work. You're just not. You could live on credit for a year and go back and start making money again the following year. So the penalties or the repercussions of a decision really aren't as dramatic as we might think, living in 2013 Brooklyn with a decent family support system.
Right.
And I think that the problem is that a lot of times when we don't want to make this type of decision, we're thinking we're supposed to have all the answers. But when you study the lives of so many people, like Axl Rose or whatever, anybody who's done anything, or Steve Jobs, they'll be like, I just got on the bus to Hollywood and figured out what I was going to do when I got there. They're very seldom going like, well, I mapped out a plan and I knew the first month I could make X amount of dollars and the second month. It's just not how it works. And I started to say I got a studio 8 years ago in Manhattan. I didn't have enough clients at that time to justify having a studio. I was just like, I'm going to get the studio and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to pay the rent. But it wasn't like I had so much work that it was time to get a studio. It wasn't like that at all. It was like I wanted a studio.
And that's okay, but that just doesn't work for everyone. And I think what you need to do is, well, I can't tell you what you need to do, but
that's my job to tell everybody what they need to do.
That's your job.
That's what I do all day. Right.
But I feel like there are differences. That people are different. I need to be able to figure things out, and you don't. And this is why it works. We can't both be like this. Right. Otherwise, we would virtually maybe have nothing, or maybe we would have everything. Which I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it's the great thing about life. Where one person is free-wielding and one person will say whatever, will say to you, hey, you should think about doing this, and that's a little bit more free-thinking, or, I'm not necessarily, I just want to have a studio, and then, I'm there to support you and say, oh, cool, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying?
Which I acknowledge a lot to you, and I probably don't mention that much publicly, like on a podcast, because it doesn't come up. But
if we were both that way, I don't necessarily know how well that would work, because maybe I would be just as selfish, and I'd say, not calling you 100%, at times you are, right? But it goes within the realm of what it is that you do. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And that's just the way it is.
Right. But I benefit greatly from you having a stable job.
Right. But if I had that personality as well, then there'd be things that you couldn't and wouldn't have. Right. Because you're making sacrifices for me. Or we would both drive each other into the poorhouse because we're both just waking up and doing what it is that we want to do, and there's no rhyme or reason and no map and no whatever. But
I still say, and again, when I'm having this conversation with you, I wouldn't have a conversation with you that was just directed at you personally on a podcast. I'm having a conversation with you because I'm using you as someone who's representing an entire population of people.
Right, but then you can also talk about the relationship, because people are oftentimes opposites. Right. And that's why they say opposites attract, because this is just the way it normally is in relationships or with people. Right. You're the creative and I'm the one who works a 9 to 5. It doesn't mean I hate it. It doesn't mean I need to now transform my life because I work a 9 to 5 job. There's a space and place for that. Now, it's a little different if I get a little older and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like doing something different or whatever, which I am in transition. I am about to do something different because I am in my 30s and I'm like, hey, I'd like to change what I do. Not 100%. I'm still staying within the realm of what it is that I do. Right. But, I'd like to make a move. Right. So that's credible and that's what I want to do. you know?
But when I look at you or anyone else, though, who does have the 9 to 5, like I said, I feel sorry for them that they don't get that benefit of, like, if I take Angelique, we have a daughter, she's 8 years old. When I take her into school, if I'm tired that morning when I woke up, I've got the luxury of coming back in the door
every morning.
Don't
call him at 9 o'clock.
But I've got the ability.
He's taking a nap.
But I've got the ability, if I choose, to take a nap for half an hour, and then I feel great again. So I just wish everybody could have that.
And I think that's fantastic of you for wanting, but I don't necessarily need that. I don't need to take a nap at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I think everybody should at least take the 1 year off at least.
That I agree. I agree with you with that. And I think society should work that into the way we work. You know what I'm saying? I 100% agree with you with that. Now, do I want to sit around Brooklyn for that year? No, I don't. You know, that would suck royally for me. Right. It would. You know, I'd just be a miserable beast if I'm waking up every morning. And I love Brooklyn. I love New York, but okay, like I took a year off work to wake up and take a nap at 9 o'clock.
It works for me. Can I tell you, it works for me.
Nice.
Once a month works for me, the take a nap in the middle of the day thing.
Okay.
All right. But anyway, we're going to wrap here. Okay. So we thank you for joining us. Where can they find you if they want to find you?
They can't find me.
They can't find you on Twitter and Instagram?
You can't Google me. I'm not Googleable.
There's no Twitter or Instagram?
Look at your face. You're getting annoyed.
I guarantee in 5 minutes they can go to my Twitter stream and figure out yours.
I don't want your friends to find me, okay?
Well, I guarantee if they go to my Twitter stream, they can find you in 5 minutes.
Okay, fantastic.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter. It's John Ricard NYC. That's JOHNRICARD NYC. Or on Instagram, which I kind of like better, it's just John Ricard. Okay, and hopefully next week, I'm going to Oregon this weekend to work on a project with Mitch Jackson, who was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I'm going to try to do a podcast out there with the people who are working on the project that we're all working on. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So please tune in, and thank you, Tamara, for joining us on the podcast.
You're welcome, John, for having me on the podcast.
Good night.